Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in this conversation about metabolic health. For the last three or so of our visits, we've been really focusing and rather even repetitively on the gut microbiome. The gut microbiome with everything, whether you're thinking of supporting the thyroid or supporting the adrenals or supporting the brain or supporting the immune system or supporting the hormonal balance, everything goes back to the gut microbiome. We'll now make that a tacit agreement. And so I will avoid much mention of gut microbiome in this metabolic health and healing, new perspectives, better results. Here, we're going to look at some other secrets that will help us clinically. I'm Dr. Jack Tips. If we've not been introduced, and it is my indeed great pleasure to visit with you, and I'm going to share with you something. Well, it may not be quite top secret, but it is a secret of deep healing impact. That there is an advantage, a competitive advantage, when we understand that our therapies need to influence the gene expression as well as the organelle expression, the mitochondria, the Golgi bodies, the endoplasmic reticulum, that type of thing in the cell. And you can simply assume that behind all of that, particularly metabolically, that there are key prebiotics and probiotics, and most of the metabolic work that people think about deals with energy, and which would be the mitochondria, or it deals with the glucose regulation. They call that metabolism. So, but here we go. I'm going to share with you a secret. Now, you're going to have to figure out what the secret is. So, if you nod off during my talk, you might miss the whole secret. I know last time I gave the entire meaning of life, and I've heard that some people were snoozing on that, but no, not you. Okay, we want to favorably impact cell nutrition, cellular function, the function of those organelles, the function of genetic transcription from the inside out. So we're not just jamming into the body, take methyl B12 or take methylfolate and push high levels and that type of thing. That's one facet of healing, but it's kind of low tier compared to things when we get into bioresonance and we get into the fact that everything from foods to the herbs to the nutrients have the capability of influencing the genes and their epigenetic processes. So we're going to go beyond methylation, beyond nitric oxide synthase, beyond the body's complex glucose regulation, beyond just getting cellular nutrition pointed to the cells. So here we go. Now you're going to have to start to guess here in a minute what the answer is, and it will be revealed. But I think you're going to get it long before. And if you know anybody's certain teaching style, it should be darn obvious by the time we get there. Let's start off with some highfalutin stuff, some philosophy in our natural health healing work. Metabolic dysfunction is often the body's epigenetic choice to do the best it can under the circumstances. The you-know-what is significantly involved in the gut microbiome. Sometimes dysfunctions are the body's perfect response to a pathogen or environmental toxin. This is why we talk so much in natural health about SIBO or bacterial infections and viral infections and mycobacteria infections and fungal infections and so forth, because those microbes have the ability to change a person's epigenetics. It takes them out of the comfort optimal zone and puts them into an overreactive, hypervigilant immune system, which can be the start of an autoimmune response, certainly a start of dysregulation of the immune system. Now, other times, dysfunctions are the body being tricked or confused. In other words, we've learned in some of these webinars about cross-reactive processes, like gluten can be a problem, and then something that's not have gluten, like a potato or rice or something, could be cross-reactive in some individuals and elicit that inflammatory state. So we're looking at immune imbalances, the microbiome, and in genetics. We're looking at hormonal mimics, and this is why we hear so much in natural health the warnings about maybe overdoing like soy with its female hormones, the estrogenics that are in soy could be too much, where maybe a little bit is helpful, particularly like in menopausal situations. Or the hormonal mimics, such as plastics from water bottles and milk cartons and can liners and things like that, where even from young children with a plastic baby bottle are getting hormonal mimics that dock with the cell receptors and throw off the body's hormonal balance. So we've given two aspects, and that just shows that it could be this, it could be this, or that, and then it could be a little bit of both. And so this is part of the challenge of designing a program. Do you need to detox estrogenic compounds? Do they have a lack of something like selenium for the thyroid? Is it a lack of something that we can support nutritionally? Is it an overabundance of something that needs to be detoxified? These are the issues that we have to make decisions as clinicians. In natural health, we seek to assist the body in stopping and reversing metabolic dysfunctions according to the body's innate methods. So as we analyze that there is a metabolic dysfunction, a person is in what used to be called syndrome X, or now metabolic syndrome. They're gaining weight, their thyroid is slow, they're getting forgetful, they're storing calcium in the heart and in the arteries. The cholesterol is holding at an elevated rate with higher than optimal low density proteins. We might see some of the lipoproteins that are driving inflammation, and we start looking at this metabolic situation, but the body has ways to heal this. And frankly, for the body to heal, we're not talking drugs, right? Which are just going to force regulate something regardless of what the body wants to do. Remember, back here in this slide, we said it could be the body's epigenetic choice. So the body could say, I'm making the right decisions. Look what you're doing to me. You're eating all this stuff that you shouldn't be eating. You're all stressed out. You have mental, emotional, and physical stress and dysfunctions. And I am going to protect you, and I'm going to step up and be vigilant. And then we go, uh-oh, that's not right. We don't want the side effect of the body doing what it's supposed to do. So we come in and we try to squash it. Well, you can realize that when you want to start fighting the body when it's doing the right thing, you're on a long row to win that one, because the body will, remember, adapt and survive. It will continue to find ways to work around or to take a little bit of help, like with your nutritional and herbal therapies or homeopathic therapies or acupuncture therapies. It'll take a little of that, but then it'll find another way to be dissatisfied because you haven't corrected the cause. When we really look at the cause, and that's our job as natural health practitioners, and it's a dearth in the practice of medicine that they're really looking at the cause, because they can so quickly sweep it under the rug and regulate the metabolism with toxic medications that the liver phase 3 detox processes will get rid of. The cellular detox processes will process it and get rid of. Then you have to take another pill and put a $300 price tag on a pill every day. And you got quite yourself a business model. Now, often dysfunctions are the plight of the cell organelles, especially mitochondrial energy production. The mitochondria are the energy producers, right? Adenosine triphosphate. They make the chemical energy of life. They're magic. They take glucose, they take fat, and they turn it in to ATP, and they do a brilliant job of it. And they're only waste products that come from the manufacture of energy. I mean, we can't do this in the world yet. As we struggle with trying to get, nuclear fusion versus nuclear fission and all of that, we end up with all of this horrendous waste products and coal dust in the air, and we try to make energy. But these smart little mitochondria, they're only going to give you back water and some oxygen and so forth, and some carbon dioxide can be exhaled. But we're not only the mitochondria, which right now I think there is a position in medical research, all chronic degenerative diseases, all autoimmune diseases are dysfunctional mitochondria. So this is a huge vector of so many, many diseases. And this is why Systemic has been so proactive in giving us formulas for the cells that deal with folate and cobalamin methylation, dealing with nitric oxide synthase and enzyme balancing within the cell, with particularly focusing on the mitochondria and what it needs in order to properly and safely manufacture ATP. It's given us a few other formulas we really need to focus on the glucose receptors and so forth. So we have a wonderful array of formulas that all impact the mitochondria. But we also have to know here for cellular metabolics that we have to deal with the endoplasmic reticulum and the Golgi apparatus, because we've got to be looking at protein folding, fatty acid processes. We can't have a fatty acid toxicity going on, and we have to look at the transcriptive process of RNA transcribing our gene code and then telling what the cells must do metabolically. And I will say right now that while so much of this system to science seems to be, okay, we've got the RNA, the messenger, the transcribing RNA and getting the message, and the messenger RNA coming and implementing, and the cells know exactly what to do with these proteins, and it's just like clockwork. The deeper we go, there's always another decision, a decision that's made like, well, how'd the body know to do that? How did they know to make that? How do they know to present what code to be copied? And there's always this element of innate intelligence. And there's decisions for our health that the body wants to make itself. And it puts all these pieces together. A lot of these decisions happen on the membranes, the plasma membrane, the nuclear membrane, and certainly the membrane of all these organelles. Now, as I said before, cellular self-healing is based on helping the body to correct the cause. It's never based on suppress the symptom. So there you go. There's the big dividing line. Are you a practitioner that's going to be suppressive, or are you a practitioner that's going to really use your brain and training to make assumptions, to make and surmise what the cause might be, or the causes, and then be able to align your program to say to the body, we're going to go after what may be the cause of this, or we're going to remove a cause and we're going to see what happens. If the body doesn't self-correct, we'll find another cause. So we want the body to engage its more optimal cellular metabolic functions. Well, here's one secret, not the one you're trying to guess, because we haven't quite got there yet. But the secret here is the body wants to heal as much as that person wants to heal, as much as you want to help the body heal. Innately, the body is crying out, I want to stop this process. Think of inflammation. The body turns it on for a reason. It's the right reason. The body needs to turn it off. If our lifestyle and input never lets the body turn off inflammation, then we suffer from chronic inflammation, and sooner or later that will wear down the cell membranes, and there will be metabolic dysfunction. So it's important to realize that we, unlike the practice of medicine, we do not have to be little dictators of telling the body, you must do this. And the fact is, we've seen in the practice of medicine that, what they were doing 20 years ago is like totally wrong compared to what they're trying to do now. And so they decided they were going to get all high and mighty and dictate to the body with these drugs. And now it's all those drugs aren't in favor anymore. They're not in vogue because they really didn't get that job done right. So they try another suppression and another suppression as the science evolves. Eventually, if we put the health and healing of the human being first, we should see the brilliance of modern medicine and the wonderful technologies be applied, and realize that, like with some 90% of all medical drugs started with an herb, started with a plant. And we kind of should be drugged back to what the natural compounds of this planet Earth is rendering for the health and healing of the human being. Okay, I'm wrapping on here about philosophy. We're going to wind this down. The cause of metabolic dysfunction can be a complex confusion. Now, here's our holistic model of the mind: errant thoughts, anger, hatred, overinflated ego, insults, revenge, motivations. All of these are stresses within the body. So I don't know if you can do this, gosh, and I hope I'm not looking in the mirror, but if you see a big egocentric natural health practitioner just grinding away for the bucks, you should have a modicum of suspicion, because they haven't mastered the holistic philosophy within themselves. And we have emotions that color and give character to the mind's aberrant thoughts. And so we realize that fear is such a bugbear underneath. If a person becomes fearful, they're releasing the cortisol, they're in fight or flight all the time. So people have betrayals and worries, and they're worrying about things they can't fix anyway. And all of this is stress. And you see where we're going with this. And then in the body, the biochemical insults, the toxic environment, that means the toxic air, the toxic radio waves, the toxic chemicals, coupled with often toxic lifestyles of dietary patterns, that this is a stress. So stress directly influences epigenetic transcription. So this was pointed out. I learned when I met a scientist from Oregon, Dr. Martin Paul, and P.A.L.L., and he was the proponent of discovering the no-ono cycle, which is nitric oxide turning into peroxynitrite, and then going back into nitric oxide, and then going back into peroxynitrite. And it was just going around and around. And in this process, this little wheel spinning inside our cells, it's just spewing an array of free radicals. And then often this would happen with post-traumatic stress, you see. So this is where something like stress, the emotions, the fear, has changed the body's biochemical cellular processes, the epigenetic transcription. So the mechanism, the histones fold, here comes the RNA telling the cells what to do, and the cells, instead of enjoying Eden and taking a dip in the pond, they're strapping on the old boxing gloves, putting horseshoes in them, getting ready to go fight the wicked world. And so when we stay in that state of belligerence internally, we're dysregulated. And we can do that for a while because it's normal, natural. But prolonged, we got to think of the gazelle. And here comes the lion, and they're all skittish. And then the lion grabs one of the cousins over there, and 8 feet away, they go back to munching the grass. It's like the fight or flight was turned on, and then the circumstances changed, and now the fight or flight turns off. So the nature, it's on for survival. It's off for smiling and living and, being nice to other people. So we're also mentioning here mitochondria and the organelles, as we've discussed. Okay, so we're getting close now to some secrets. Part of our issues and our job as natural health clinicians is we're trying to find out where's the breakdown. We know that genes predispose. Each person has a unique gene code, and there's some weaknesses there. There's some single nucleotide polymorphisms, and there's things that aren't working at 100%. They're not firing on all the cylinders, but everybody's a little different, and there's often reasons for SNPs in that they kind of quench down one pathway, but other avenues open up. And now we end up with biochemical individuality and a lot of differences across humanity. So, like when the bubonic plague hits Europe like it didn't take out everybody. Some people had the ability to adapt and survive, and other people had to say adios. It was a genetic predisposition. And so the genes predispose and epigenetics implements. That's your transcription, where your gene code is providing information to your cellular metabolics on how to perform. When your cellular metabolics perform, that's your tissue function. Now your kidneys can do what kidneys do, and the spleen can do what spleens do, and hopefully your brain can do some good thoughts and that type of thing. And so here's the process that occurs. Now there's something common to all four of these levels. Now that's the secret. What if we had one nutrient that could help the genes? I know what you're about to say there, and we're going to go to it in the next slide. And it could help with epigenetic implementation. This is deep stuff. And it could help the cell organelles perform their metabolic functions, and it could help improve tissue integrity so the tissues are strong. And all of a sudden, all the horses are pulling together. Everything's working well. What could that be? Okay. Now, you were about to say, I know because, often lecturing to the best and the brightest. And that's why I try to make it so simple, because if I went really deep into this stuff, I'd probably get caught with some kind of tongue slippage on something. But you're going to say, yeah, your code is your code. Your genes are your genes. You don't change your genes. Well, what if your gene code is damaged, right? What if you were sitting up on your 747 flying across the Pacific Ocean, there at 39,000 feet, and you're getting zapped by the sun, the kind of the oxidative radiation from the sun, and you get some gene code damage. Can that code be fixed? Maybe you were visiting 7 Mile Island. I hear it's a great tourist place, and you can go look at the nuclear reactor while you're there. Maybe you got a hold of a nasty pathogen, and or something, a virus, or even worse, what if you had artificial virus spikes injected into your body, and they start messing with your gene code? Can that be fixed? That's the question. And you know what? The answer is, oh, yes, indeed. The body can and does repair its genes. You're not going to change your fundamental code, but you want your fundamental code working as good as it can. You may drive an old car, but boy, you want it tuned up right and good tires and all the hoses nice, and that hand crank on the front of it, you want it to turn over real quick. So whatever our gene code is what our gene code is. But when something gets damaged by the ionizing radiation, the body has methods to fix it. And so there's a variety of endogenous and exogenous DNA damaging agents. Now, look at the top line here. Ultraviolet light, ionizing radiation, toxic chemicals. These are the areas that we talk about so much. There's what's called DNA lesions. You see here in the bottom left, that poor gene code, that DNA double helix there. It got zapped and now it's injured. And so this is called, there's a single strand break like we see there, and the scientists brilliantly call that an SSB. And there's a double strand break. And now think about this, the scientists are going to label that a DSB. And so this will start to modify things. And we just think about chemical modifications and what they mean to the base of sugars that run your cells in your body. The healing sugars are there, not just like table sugar destroying the person's health, but the healing sugars that the body uses. Anyway, these things, let's see, replication errors and cellular metabolic errors, all these things can kick back into the gene code, and they call genomic instability. There's mutations even. Cells have evolved a series of mechanisms called DNA damage response. And again, the scientists have unbelievably brilliantly labeled that DDR. And in order to deal with these things, so see, the body has an innate process to heal itself, not just heal the splinter that broke the skin, but to heal the deep genetic damage that's caused within the nuclear inner sanctum of each and every cell, except erythrocytes. You're with me there. So the DDR is a complex network that functions in different ways to target various DNA lesions, whether it's signal transduction or transcriptional regulation or cell cycle, what they call cell cycle checkpoints. I won't tell you what they call that in science. And the induction of apoptosis, where when things are just beyond repair, the cell wisely says, I'm chalking it up. I'm going to apoptote. I'm going to fall apart. I'm going to die. And let new cells come in and take over. So apoptosis is so important because when that mitochondria gets damaged, we don't want it spinning off into an immortal cancer. We want this process to either it gets repaired or get the heck out of the way of a healthy body. Okay, so now we've established healing from the top down. You can heal the genes if they're damaged. Now, the telomeres. And I know there have been brilliant lectures on telomeres that Systemic has posted. And these are the little anglets on the end of these chromosome strands. And for a while, science had the brilliant idea of calling it junk DNA, which is sort of like weeds in a garden. There are plants that people haven't figured out their medicinal properties and their benefits to people. They just called it junk because they couldn't fathom the absolute importance of telomeres. And now science has uncovered that if these telomeres, they're a clock, they are your aging clock. You have maybe 5,000 layers built up when you're a spry young child, and every time that cell replicates, some of those proteins are dispersed, and it's a carbon copy of a carbon copy of a carbon copy of a carbon copy until finally you're getting copies that aren't so spiffy. They don't work as well. And if those ends come off, the like anglets on a shoestring, which I'm sure you're familiar with the word anglet, then it unravels. And when the telomeres unravel, the cell dies. You have telomeres unraveling all over your body due to age, then it's time to check out of that body and move it along. So telomeres are the ends of chromosomes that keep the sequences from unraveling. Telomere length is associated with longevity and aging. Now, here's a nice thing over here on the left. We have telomerase enzyme, which is the body's method of repairing the telomere. So you might say if there's 5,000 layers, you get 5,000 cell reproductions, and then you die. That's all it's just going to run out. The tether hits the end, it unravels, and it's adios amigo. And but wait a minute, there's something that slows that down. There's something that replaces. So it's like you're marching along through life, and you get to be 80 years old, and somebody says, "Oh, wait a minute, let's take 10 years. Let's add 10 years to your lifespan." Telomerase enzyme. So the point there is the body has a way to heal the telomeres. Now, okay, the cells also have a histone repair mechanism. Yeah, if you're not familiar with histones, that's quite all right. They're these protein structures, and the DNA, your life code wraps around it. You can think of you're trying to pack a suitcase to go on your trip, and you take all your clothes and you wad it up and you throw them in there, and you try to put the lid on, and that suitcase is just too full. You've got too much dead space in there, airspace, things are built on top of each other. It's just a mess. And so these strands of DNA, which could just stretch out across the football field and wrap themselves around the world, these DNA strands, incredibly long histones, have the innate intelligence to structure them, to organize them, to take this whole bowl of spaghetti and start lining up the noodles. And as the DNA wraps around it, it's organized. So it's a compacting structure. It's actually using the suitcase itself to carefully organize and pack all the clothes and the shoes and some people, more shoes and also more shoes. And then to get all that in the suitcase. But even more vital than just packing the suitcase inside the cell, they help determine gene expression. So if the histone folds that itself and then presents the DNA, it's the low-hanging fruit. Here comes the RNA, the tRNA, and it's going to, oh, you're showing me this. It's like what that suitcase puts right on top. It's the shirt that's on top and the underwear that's on top. You grab those and you're heading out for the day. And then tomorrow it's the layer underneath. And so they help determine gene expression. This is so important to understand that the transcriptive RNA approaches this DNA to unzip and to make a copy of this code. They're coming in to do a little kind of bas relief rubbing of the code and bring it back to the cells. They're going into the library, making some photocopies, and then they're bringing it back out to show the world. And so there's an innate intelligence here with histones. So you can imagine how this impacts overall health. And so they help determine gene expression. Wow. Now we have transcription. We have just the cell DNA itself. We have these processes. We have the histones. And then listen to this. There's a few other mechanisms that control. It's not just this simple. There's other mechanisms that control how the cell metabolics is going to work. And then now we're going to raise the question. I mentioned up here methylation required, and this is where when you start seeing the idea or conceiving the idea of methyl donors and it turning genes off and turning genes on. You might think of these green beads throughout this image here as methyl donors, and bingo, it's shutting down a certain sequence here, and it's opening up something else. Again, the innate intelligence is making decisions about how much alarm is in the world, about how what the gut microbiome is telling the body about the external world. Is it a big threat? Is there inflammation? All of this is going on as the body is adapting to survive. It's just absolutely phenomenal. Now, the RNA repair mechanism. So here we realize that it's the ribosomes. We'll look into this in just a minute, but your cells in the cytoplasm sends a chain of RNA into the nucleus to go up against those histones and the codon, a segment, and it goes, aha, going to the library, opens the book. This is the information I need. This tells me exactly step 1, step 2, step 3, and that's how I fix the garbage disposal. Okay, I got to go back out of the library now and fix that garbage disposal. And so here we find the person went to the copy machine and copied that book, and they rush home and they realize the text is broken. And they go, oh, does it say to put the wrench in the disposal and then turn it on? Or does that say turn it off? I see the O, but I can't tell if it's O-N or O-F-F. And, there's one way to find out. It's just turn it on. But we want to have a greater degree of accuracy. So ribosomes repair defective transcriptive processes that cause genetic or malignant diseases. So like the wrench in the garbage disposal, it's going to clang around, maybe go flying up, hit somebody in the eye, and it becomes a disease. And so this is pretty important because we've left the nucleus now and we've come out into the cytoplasm, and now it's time for the metabolic function. Yet some people's bodies are grinding metabolic function right into diabetes. Other people are grinding it into other diseases, maybe multiple sclerosis or something. And that's because of their unique gene presence and their predispositions. Predispositions, epigenetics, then the organelle function and the tissue function. Okay, so I just gave you a little bit better picture here so that you know what the endoplasmic reticulum looks like. This is just another organelle. I know you're all extremely knowledgeable on the mitochondria, and here we're just going to look a little bit at the ER system. So important to muscle building and avoiding the cancer, because this is where you get the mechanistic target of rapamycin. If you've looked at the mTOR system and realizing you've got to activate that to build muscle, but if it overactivates, then it can go into the cancer processes, which is exactly here what we're looking at. And so this ribosome is just this little dot. So you see here, the ribosomes are just these little pimples here. So they're eensy-weensy organelles within another organelle. And they're going to be busy doing something for us. They repair the transcribers of the code. In other words, the body knows what the code ought to be. The body has a feeling, a sense that I need to have the right kind of code. And then when something comes back and go, oh, where'd this virus get in here? Or, gosh, maybe you walked past the gene CRISPR store and you got some frog DNA stuck in here or something. The body is going to look at how to repair itself. This is the thing that's so often overlooked in the work of healing. Again, I'll say it so that it really comes through now at a separate time. The body itself probably has the strongest desire to heal itself. The things that block the self-healing is when we don't correct the cause or we use a suppressive therapy. So we're getting, that's back to the philosophy. But look at these cellular processes. Okay. Now, I'll let you know, I had certain words highlighted in yellow. And mum's the word, I didn't speak them on those earlier slides. So did you figure it out? Did you see what is the supportive commonality? What nutritional factor can help the genes repair themselves? Like from ionic radiation, ionizing radiation damage, like X-rays, and even damage from non-ionizing radiation, which means you've got a chance to survive your cell phone if you stick it in your ear, because that non-ionizing radiation, there's ample science to say that it causes some problems. But you know what? Deep within the body, there are repair mechanisms. Now, whether you want to keep your body busy repairing the cell phone in your ear damage all the time, or if you want to save those resources, maybe for preventing cancer until you're, 200 years old, that's your choice. Okay, here it is, drum roll. And sure enough, you got it. All those slides had cellular identity factors highlighted in yellow. And now we're going to have a little discourse here on cellular identity factors. And I told you there's a secret, and this is one of the part of the secret. But I'm going to now be moving towards showing you 4 formulas that provide a certain array of cellular identity factors that can boost your program. So if you're doing like giving people, B12 and B folate and all of that for methyl donors, or your whatever you're doing in this area, there's a component you're missing. That missing component can now be included, and you make a comprehensive program. I've often made over the years the case for both precision and for comprehensive, because there's so many nuances to the body's plight that you might just say, if you solve 10 potential causes of cellular distress, you're going to have a higher rate of the body's self-healing occur than if you just go after one. If you're extremely brilliant, you can go after one. You know the one, it's the only one. You treat that with nutrition, the body can heal itself. But what if there's other factors? And we have to start thinking the mental, the emotional, not just the physical, biochemical, but the bioenergy, the resonance of the body. And is the resonance working right? Because we are the body electric, and that is a huge component. I should not be out on a limb talking about this like we were 40 years ago when bioenergy was all woo-woo. Bioenergy can be measured in the body. Bioenergy of every tissue can be measured in the body. It's just that modern science is still so busy looking at suppressive molecules. They're not looking at how supporting energy balance could allow the body to heal itself. Because the goal of so much of today's scientific research is not about healing. It's about how to get paid to create a suppressive medication. So we want to say, oh, you have to show me the science. But the science is a horse trying to run the race with blinders on, and we're really not being open-minded. We're not an open-minded species of saying, I want to give credence to every harebrained crackpot theory, and either we're going to destroy it with our science, or we're going to have to find, there's more to the body than we thought, right? Which is what was said to Horatio. If you read your Shakespeare, there's more than there's more to life than you're thinking. Okay, obviously I forgot the quote too, but it does have the word Horatio in it. Now, the chemical reactions within each cell that provide energy for vital processes and synthesizing new organic material. This is your metabolic. This is metabolism. It's basically thought of can be the conversion of food into cellular energy. So there's your mitochondria over and over and over. We were kind enough to introduce you to the ribosome, which was a macromolecular machine within the cells that perform biological protein synthesis. The ribosomes that we were talking about, they're linking amino acids together in the order specified by the codons of the mRNA, the messenger RNA molecules, and they're going to form these polypeptide chains. And we could have gone in and said there's small and large ribosome, and they each have different duties and subunits and so forth. Fascinating stuff, provided you have some geek genes like yours truly. Okay, here we go. Cellular identity factors. They are universal gene sequences. They are tissue-specific nucleic acid chains. We'd only expect that a liver's nucleic acid chain would be different than the eyeball's nucleic acid chain. So this is a primal blueprint containing the secret of cellular structure. You know, you've seen them all. The structure and function. You've seen one pair of adrenals function. You've seen that in a sheep. You've seen it in a cow. You've seen it in a squirrel. You've seen it in a human being. Structure and function. They're universal. They have similar gene sequences. They have that magic code to do what supports health. So anyway, these are naturally arranged protein sequences. They directly feed, they directly support the glands, organs, and tissues to repair and renew their life processes. So you might think if you have this cellular identity factor and you eat it, that in your body, that little tiny nucleic, see, it's real small, and they do go through the intestines into the body. These nucleic acids then will find its way, because of its resonance, because of its organization of protein sequence, the body goes, oh, look at that, ready-made for me. What do you know? I'm going to send that over to the liver, and gosh, that little part of the liver there got damaged. It was that fourth margarita that did it. But now that acetaldehyde damage, yeah, we're going to get that repaired. And that little molecule goes there, and the body says, give me more, give me more. If I had 100 of those, give me the fulcrum and I'll move the earth. So now, cellular identity factors are a normal, natural component of human nutrition, sorely lacking in modern diets. When was the last time you went to the burger shop and ordered sweetbreads? Right? Pancreas, cellular identity factors. Or maybe you went to the vending machine and you got pork rinds, fried pork rinds. Well, you got some cellular identity factors for the skin, because pork rinds are the oink skin and they fry the heck out of it. And but the heat doesn't break those protein bonds. Maybe I'm trying to think what else you might do, but you're not doing it. You know, when was the last time liver used to be a very popular food? Liver and onions went down the hatch pretty good if someone had a gallon of ketchup. But liver, which has the cellular identity factors. Well, now we don't want to eat the liver because modern agriculture has totally ruined the agricultural livers with all the hormones, the vaccine adjuvants, the chemicals they spray, the fly repellent, all the things that they do to Bossy the cow. It just rots their liver, and then they plop them through the meat processor before diseases would happen over time. It's a race, but they get that cow to market before there's an obvious chronic degenerative disease. But so you don't really want to eat that liver anymore, but it used to be the superfood. So now in natural health, you might be aware that there's a demand for some of that, whether it's Argentinian or New Zealand, organic, pasture raised, munching the grass all day. People that care about their animals, they go out into the pasture in the day and munch away and herd, and they come back to the barn at night, and it's a good life if you're a bovine. And they'll use those livers and make something called desiccated liver for people, and you can get some cellular identity factors from that. So CIFs are, I just wanted to demonstrate my scientific bend of mind. CIFs, life expressive determinants. They're tied in with innate intelligence because this is the key, the codon key of how the cell should function, how the cell should repair. So these are the repair factors. You can say, well, vitamins help heal, herbs help heal, and certain nutritional components, like coenzyme Q10 or something like that, N-acetylcysteine. These are nutriments that they can all help the body heal. But what the body is looking for is that missing code. And it's not in our diets. There's not that many people. And I know you're saying, oh, but I love pate. Well, that's sort of a diseased liver that is being brought to market under the hoity-toity pate. And it's not really quite the quality that can do the job. Now, if you had a grass-fed, organically raised beef marrow bone, which used to be very popular at fine restaurants everywhere, then that marrow bone could be supporting your bone marrow because you're eating the cellular identity factors. And if there's something going on a little hinky in the bone, then here comes the exact molecules that can facilitate the healing. Okay. Old Doc Wheelwright, he pioneered, he championed cellular identity factors and wanted them in the systemic formulas. And he said that cellular identity factors are the alphabet of cellular intelligence. Yeah. They remind the tissues how to construct and reconstruct their fundamental structures. That's your ribosomes, that's your mitochondria, that's your Golgi bodies, and so that they function properly. The key nutritional component is lacking in most of today's vitamin, mineral, protein, and herbal supplements, right? Unless you're seeing cellular identity factors on the label, nutritional supplementation has gone off in an area that neglects this all-inclusive, very, very powerful healing element. So we're always using a fragment of what we could have if we were looking at comprehensive support. These are vitally important in the healing of weakened, damaged, aged tissues. Without it, the tissue can never fully recover its optimal function. Doc there in the picture, and he's in the laboratory working away with these concepts, said it pretty blatantly there. Without it, the tissue can never fully recover its optimal function. That's what our practices are all about, isn't it? Optimal function. We're trying to approach that. Need to mention bioenergy. I brought it up a little earlier because it is a strong component. There's energy healing. The energy helps with targeted nutrition. It's the flowing resonance of all life forms, the distinct, unique, and measurable energy generated by living matter. Sometimes it's called the vitality or the innate vitality, or it's called the qi, or qi is the right pronunciation in Chinese medicine. So you can think of ki, the qi. The higher frequencies express greater adaptability and help. So life is energy, and we want to live in higher frequencies. Those higher frequencies move us out of the fear and the phobias band of energy worry And where does it go? Where does it go? Up, up, up. And then what do we run into? We run into the realm generally called love. And that refers to goodwill, just a pervasive feeling of goodwill for all life, whether it be a plant, an animal, or another human being, or even a growing mineral. It's love of life. And that puts people into a higher state of bioenergy. So I just want to mention here that DNA has unique resonances, where it's per tissue subdivided into certain different tissue functions. And these resonances are universal. So I want to just visit a little bit of some of the founding principles of the formulas with systemic. Dr. Wheelwright in his research found that a lot of formulas are incomplete. They just lack critical elements. You can think one big critical element, if you peruse the grocery store shelves, the health food store shelves of supplement after supplement after supplement, they're lacking in cellular identity factors. Powerful region of healing, and yet, we're not doing it. There's imbalanced formulas, which things just don't work right. Doc Wheelwright was measuring the resonance and, checking the vitality of the component combination. So he wanted to bring his formulas for systemic to the point of having that superior element. And so that's what happened. The systemic became synonymous with cell-ready, bioenergetic, comprehensive, multifactorial type supplements, which just gives us that competitive advantage. And if we look here at sort of the matrix of a formula, this is on the biofunction, we see there's an herbal nutritional base. There's other nutritional factors, like maybe, coenzyme Q10 or something. There's minerals and cell salts and vitamin catalysts and amino acids that the tissue needs. Aha, cellular identity factors. Yep, I said it again. Herbal catalysts that specifically work with vitamins. So it's one thing to take a dead vitamin. Why I call it dead is because it's been synthetically manufactured from coal tar and that sort of thing, versus using a more living, life-factored vitamin, which would come through often through a plant. And so a lot of the B vitamins and so forth can now be synthesized from, maybe one of 6 plants are being used in the industry. And now a person can acquire, as in the case with Spectra 1 and 2, the person you can acquire certified organic, plant-derived, full spectrum, meaning all the factors, vitamin C with bioflavonoids, that kind of thing. Supplements, what a giant jump over the last 10 years of getting a superior supplements. And then our little wheel here shows the herbal combination. So we're really looking at this combinetic type of nutrition, and the balancing factor that's missing from so many formulas are cellular identity factors, which means they're missing from our practices. I have to point out, this is Dr. Wheelwright's grandson, Dr. Shane Morris. He's at the helm over there at Systemic. He's a molecular biologist. He's very familiar not only with molecular biology, but the impact of herbs on cellular metabolic function. Wow, how great is that? He's been able to validate a lot of Doc's earlier research. Not all of it. Some of it was just probably unable to be validated, but such you get with creative and intuitive individuals. Dr. Morris's expertise is to employ the latest scientific studies, and particularly in genomics, the metabolome, and the microbiome spelling. So now let me share with you 4 formulas that you can toss one of these in to your program and pick up these cellular identity factors. So when someone says, I really need to heal my adrenals, they said, I've had adrenal fatigue and I really need to heal. We want to get these cellular identity factors working along with all the tried and true stuff, vitamin C and zinc and, glycerated licorice and the things that, holy basil and things that everybody and their dog put in a formula for the adrenals, but so many of them are missing the proper support, let's say, of the HPA axis. Okay, so we need to understand that this formula is designed to increase the targeted tissue's assimilation. It will capitalize on that tissue's active function. If you look at the Chinese organ activation clock, there's different organs that activate and work their hardest at different times around the clock. And it's that active cycle that's really going to use this formula and go, wow, I've got all the tools I need. Let's get to work. Let's get it done right. So it enhances the tissue's ability to activate its chief function, right, structure and function. Stimulates sluggish tissue to perform optimally, but does not overstimulate, supports the hypothalamic communication with the brain. If we think about, we're trying to get the adrenals on track, what a great formula, but this formula works if you put it with the GT thymus, if you use it in any context, if you want the thymus and the hypothalamus. So let's look at those a little bit here. The thymus is sometimes called the heart of the immune system. We should all know by now it makes T cells. It's part of the lymphatic system. It's part of the lymphatic immune system. And it makes three majorly important connections here. It tells the pituitary to release hormones, makes the T cells, which means thymus-derived immune cells. Thymosin and thymulin. Thymulin is powerfully healing in its own right for people with autoimmune, people with allergies. Thymulin has respect all by itself to work with the T cells, and the thymic humoral factor keeps the immune system balanced, working properly. What I find with now, is this not important stuff? Making T cells, maintaining immune integrity, communication with the pituitary, which is the master regulator of all the hormonal processes in the body. Is that really not important? And yet for so long, the esteemed science said, oh, this is a vestigial organ. It works when you're in the womb. It works shortly after birth. But it's vestigial, and, it might even be a mistake, but you don't need it. We do find, looking a little deeper into global studies, where elderly people with noticeable thymus are immeasurably more healthy than those where the thymus shrunk. We want to look at the hypothalamus, which is this little section in the brain, coordinating center. It's maintaining homeostasis. Now that's the balance of the body, so it doesn't go too far one way or the other. We know a person has lost metabolic homeostasis when they express a lot of allergies, when they express autoimmune disease. These things are pulling the body out of homeostasis. Doesn't it make sense that we might want to see that hypothalamus has some of those nucleic acid sequences that could be rejuvenative? It's tied in with the limbic system, which has a lot to do with people's motivation and their emotional balance. The autonomic nervous system, it's half of the system that runs automatically. Nerves that go directly to the pituitary and is important in the HPA axis, which we're back to the adrenals. And we're going to look a little bit here at the adrenals, because you all know so much about these organs and glands that here we just quickly acknowledging the various epinephrine, norepinephrine, which are your adrenalines, your aldosterone, which holds minerals in the blood for the body to use. How important is that? This is your acid-alkaline balance, cortisone, cortisol. That's your anti-inflammatory. That's your stress response. Direct impact over blood pressure and the immune. That makes the number one formula. What an ally. Let's just go back and look at these things real quick. Does this not factor into a whole lot of processes? The thymus, the hypothalamus, and just getting a little oomph, a little extra nutrition. Maybe the person's all right there, but I'll tell you, the body is looking for these sequences because they used to be in the diet. So you might say where a human being is trained that it might be getting cellular identity factors from eating organ tissues that were more the natural part of a human diet, where particularly the Native American was famous for not wasting anything from nature. It was a matter of respect to the creature and a respect for nature, a respect for the planet, and these factors built strong bodies. So here we look at another one that we could reach for, the number 2 builder. It's the duodenal in the stomach. Very interesting concept here. It comes out of elements of Chinese medicine, but the stomach is central to healing. And if a person has the stomach ailing, it's harder to heal the ankle or the nose or the ears when the stomach is not cooperating. You could just think of simple, the translation of food into self is involved. The body wants to heal. It's looking for this. So Dr. Wilhite was very adamant about having duodenal and stomach support. Very important in rebuilding of collagen. So you think, I have a patient with a torn ligament or a torn ankle or something. Yeah, you put them on the collagen, bring in the number 2 and support the stomach to take care of the reconstruction cycle of the body. This is more bioenergetic, that the stomach is central to the body's healing endeavors. The number 5, called stabilizer, it has thalamus, bone marrow, and brain factors. This particular formula was trying to help the cells as they go into their cellular division, the mitosis, to not keep perpetuating errant proliferations. In other words, the carbon copy of the carbon copy, and it keeps getting worse. And when it gets on a roll and really gets going worse, then it can really accelerate, circling the bowl, so to speak. And so these errant biogenic, meaning the new cell is born and it's got a birth defect. So that's where this formula came in to try to stabilize that. It strengthens cells' innate resistance to abnormal developments, the kind of developments that do anaerobic fermentations, mycosis, or rapid proliferations. We want to get good reproduction because the cell, if it's going toward apoptosis and it decides to reproduce, and it's got to discard the old cell, we want that new cell to be vital. We want it to have recaptured. We want those sequences to be rebuilt, and that it comes forth as a viable, healthy offspring. So here we can look at the thalamus, which is kind of this egg thing in the middle of the brain area. But this is a relay system, and it deals with sight, touch, taste, and hearing. It doesn't do smell. It's like the body always keeps a backup or another sense being rerouted So if someone were damaged here, let's say they got whacked on the head, they still might have the ability to have very acute sense of smell that would save their lives, adapt, and survive. Motor movement, this area of the brain helps us prioritize. For me, the most important thing today was to give this presentation. That was probably my thalamus that said, you better do it, good boy, or else. It keeps us awake too. You'll notice I haven't nodded off. It sort of supports cognition, memory, and it's got the connection into the limbic and the emotions. So, you're dealing with, let's say, a person and, you think, gosh, there's an emotional component. As long as they've got this, achy breaky heart going, it's going to be really hard to heal the post traumatic stress syndrome. You could be treating that person with ROX, ROX for the antioxidants, and you could be doing the Venta, the nitric oxide synthase. You could be getting into the cell, saying, no, let's not do that. No cycle. Let's not keep spewing free radicals. Let's get the healing done. But then the emotions are keeping it all turned on. Here you've got a shot of saying, let's get some new sequences that the body will send. We're not tinkering with the thalamus. We're giving the body the ability and the option to get sequences to maybe get a center relaying information. That information being relayed is to heal the cellular metabolics. Powerful, powerful formula. In fact, number 5 is likely should be a clinician's top formula of the 4 that we're talking about. Finally, the bone marrow. I'm just going to point out that there's 2 bone marrows. There's the yellow bone marrow for the mesenchymal stem cells are there, and it stores fat, particularly with older people. And the red bone marrow that produces the erythrocytes and the platelets and the white blood cells, the lymphocytes, and some stem cells too. And so there's a lot going on with the bone marrow. And if you're not eating marrow bones, you're probably having a nutritional deficit. Your patients are not eating marrow bones like the ancients used to, even 40, 50 years ago. Marrow bones were on many, many menus. It was much more common. The number 5 stabilizer just may bring in a missing element that allows the body to comprehensively pull things together for more optimal healing. And the brain, we are all probably pretty experts in the anatomy and physiology of the brain. We know it integrates sensory input. It regulates the body. It's sort of the executive office that's going to regulate everything. What we're asking the body to do is regulate healing. Say, hey, why aren't you healing well? Why are you settling for this epigenetic expression of this chronic degenerative disease? Let's get the show on the road. Yep, we've got to fix the gut microbiome, as we've talked about in several webinars prior to this, but we also may have this extra element that we can bring to bear where we're really the elite in natural healing. We bring the cellular identity factors involved. And finally, number 6, restore, which is a powerful healing formula. And here you find the stomach, the duodenal stomach. The adrenals are important for healing, and the thymus, the things we've already talked about. We've all 4 of those here. To help trigger and accelerate repair of damaged tissue during the cycle when the body says, yep, it's time for me to fix that sprained ankle or to repair that system that got damaged. Very important for trauma. Bring it involved. You could alternate the number 5 and the number 6 with what you do for post-traumatic stress in the cells. So the cells don't keep post-traumatic stress going. It allows the body to process and get back to a more optimal cellular metabolic process. Okay. Repair collagen and soft tissue and help repair the free radicals. Now, we did 1, 2, 5, and 6. So if you're pretty savvy on the 6 biocommand formulas that Dr. Wheelwright made for systemic, you might be saying, where's biocommands number 3 and 4? Well, 3 and 4 are herbal. They don't have the cellular identity factors. And number 3, Bactrex, is very, very famous and leading formula when there's bacterial issues. The gut microbiome processes those herbs and puts powerful antimicrobials into the body. And the number 4, which is called FungDX, is the similar process for fungus. And so we have here now, I've presented a very mild overview, tried to curb my tongue and not get too deep into stuff, because either you know it or, Dr. Google will certainly inform you. But a competitive advantage, healing from the top down. You remember the diagram: genetics, epigenetics, organelle function, cellular function, coming on down into tissue function, coming on down to woohoo, everything, all the horses pulling in the right direction. So I've given you a secret that the body has a dire and desperate need for cellular identity factors, all the more today than they did 100 years ago, than the bodies do even 50 years ago. You might just do a quick checklist for yourself, or certainly run it by your patients. When did you eat bone marrow? When did you eat liver? When did you have kidney? Look at, where's the organ meats? And in the older days, some kidney would be ground up and put in ground meat, added up into a burger, out on the grill it goes. Nobody knew there was organ meat in it. It was just a good old hamburger. So I'm just saying it's not quite as strange or weird as it used to be, but I fear for humanity as we go away from the traditional foods and the ancient wisdom, that we're walking not into a glorious future, but we're walking out on a limb where the body must be regulated by suppressive medications in order to have any even temporary run at normality before it all falls apart. Your best longevity, your best health comes from the best nutrition. These are factors that should be included. When you do include these in your program, I do believe you should indeed expect that you're getting another notch up in your healing percentages, and that you're finding longer, more lasting impact from your nutritional therapies. And thank you so much for your attentiveness. Wish you well. And I hope to hear sometime that you're applying number 1, number 2, number 5, and number 6 to run healing from the top down, and so that we're not settling for mild equilibrium in the physical, but that we embrace our holistic model with holistic healing. You take care now.